Welcome to Qatar KickAround, the nightly wrap-up and discussion of the day's action in the 2022 World Cup. From the group stage to the final, our team is here, keeping you on top of the world's most watched sporting event. Brought to you by Westwood One Sports.
Idaho, and welcome to our wrap-up of today's France v. Morocco semifinal, a.k.a. Qatar KickAround. Hi, it's me, Peter, tagging along with the man that knows more about the World Cup than the World Cup itself, Andy Swift.
Bonjour.
And way over there, live from London, England, he's back to wearing the hoodie again, Lars Sivertson.
So cold, Peter.
So cold.
So cold.
You're so fragile and cold.
And just mean the leaky house is all. How are you guys doing? What's the
house.
temperature where you are?
We need to get you some of that spray foam. Expanding spray
you know
foam.
what? Yes, that is the solution.
The temperature here is it has cooled off a little bit. We are at a balmy in the 50s in Fahrenheit, whatever that. I think that's what in the high. Is that in the teens?
I mean, I think if it was in the 50s here, we'd all be dead. So that doesn't...
Right. Yes.
Yeah, low teens.
Can we have a debate on that one day? What is better, Celsius or Fahrenheit?
The one that makes sense to me is what we'll both say, and then then we'll be a little bit stuck.
We are seeing the sun for the first time. You see the
the sun is out for the first
live,
time in a bit. Yes, absolutely.
I just think it's good for freezing point being 0. Just seems logical to me, you know.
Sure. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. There's probably some
Boiling point
logic
being
to that.
100. You know.
Well, let's just take a vote from the rest of the world. Let's see. Who mostly uses Celsius? 98% of the world. And who doesn't?
Oh, there goes Andy with his
I'm
worldwide
just saying.
global
I'm
logic
just saying,
again.
It's when we're defending soccer, it's like, okay, 4 billion people can't be wrong.
America. All right.
Water boils at 100 and it freezes at 0. You know, it's easy to remember.
We now know who is playing in both the third place game and the championship final as France has bested Morocco in quite a game today, which we will get to discussing. But beforehand, because they've paid significant advertising dollars for this branding, it is Soccer90.com's Professor Andy's World Cup Trivia moment.
Well, France, despite playing in the finals, was one of 3 defending champions to lose in the group stages to an African team. They lost to Tunisia this year, remember? Now, that was their B-side. It wasn't really considered that much of an upset, a little bit, right?
Right.
There were 2 much bigger upsets, though, in the history of World Cup, where an African team actually beat the defending champion in the group stage.
I know one of them.
So those 2 countries, I'll tell you the countries, you'll have to tell me who they beat in maybe the World Cup. Those are Cameroon and Senegal. They both beat a defending champion in the group stages.
I think I know these, Lars.
Sorry, I got confused again.
What do you mean you're confused about?
Okay, you can have the question again.
Were you not paying attention?
I was paying attention. I'm
There have
stupid.
3 times an African team has beaten the defending champion in the group stage of a World Cup. It happened this year. Tunisia beat France.
Right, any World Cup. Now, I was just thinking, like, come on.
It's happened 2 other times.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, good, yeah.
Cameroon
I
and
got it
Senegal
now.
were the ones
I
that
got
did
it,
it.
thank
Tell me
you.
the 2 countries they beat in the World Cups.
I thought you meant this World Cup for some reason.
No,
and it just melted my brain to think who Senegal could have beaten. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we will answer this thrilling trivia question in part 3 of today's podcast. All right, here we are. This is the 3rd of the 3 final shows of Qatar KickAround, and I gotta say, this game probably largely played out as we mostly predicted it would yesterday, but it was an entertaining game. And a whole host of reasons.
Yeah.
And you say that despite the fact you ended up with France, the underdog Cinderella not making it through and not scoring a goal. But the game was still incredibly entertaining.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think we expected an early goal for Morocco, an early goal for France. We thought they were going to hang on for longer. and I have issues with that goal. We'll get to it.
You have issues. You want to talk to that goal and set that goal straight.
For the benefit of listeners at home, I'm actually snarling on the screen. But because they went down early, it forced Morocco to attack. It forced Morocco to play in a way that we haven't seen them play a lot in this tournament. They mostly, because they haven't been conceding any goals, they've been able to kind of soak up pressure and hit people on the counter. They weren't able to do that. They had to attack. But then we saw, as we've also seen many times, is that the French do not like it when they have to defend. This is a team that has a little bit, and it's very unlike Didier Deschamps, because that's not how he wants it. It's just the card he's been dealt. This French team is not happy when people actually attack them. And Morocco managed to create quite a lot of good chances. They just couldn't put the ball in the net. And in the end, they conceded a second as well.
And what you mean by unhappy and don't like to defend, I mean, some teams are very comfortable defending, and they play that way. Morocco being one of them, right?
Yeah.
And France just didn't seem comfortable with that role.
But it's just...
But they did. And you
yeah.
sent a stat earlier, Lars, to us that you saw, I think, on Twitter about how well they've actually been defending when it comes to the numbers.
Here, let me read it to you because I saved it. It was from the excellent Twitter account Aaron Monez. He tweeted, France won their group in 2 games, rested in the third, won every knockout game in regulation. In the 5 games with their first choice 11, they've scored 13 goals, none of them penalties, and have conceded 4. 2 of those were penalties. And they haven't conceded an open play yet in the knockout stages.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, those facts don't lie.
Right.
What I'm referring to more is, it's kind of intangible, but when Morocco get forward, it was often quite chaotic. It was often,
Yeah, who does what? You go there, I come here, right? That kind of thing.
Not on the Moroccan side, but on the French side.
Yeah,
they were openings to exploit. This was not a case of France just taking the lead and shutting down. I don't think this lineup can shut it down because, again, you go through the lineup and you have a kind of a 4-2-3-1 formation with 2 wingers who don't want to defend and 1 left back who don't want to defend, and that kind of leads you with a lot of chaos. And So Varane and Konate had to make some heroic challenges at the back to clear things up occasionally, and it was a really entertaining game because of it. And I feel for Morocco because, again, this did not look like, you take away the team name Morocco, take away the shirt colors and all this sort of stuff, it did not look like a game between an underdog and a global superpower at soccer. It was an evenly matched game, I thought, between a team that had to go for it because they conceded early, but then created a lot of openings, and France were never comfortable, I thought.
Well, how about throw in the fact that the way the game even started was completely wheels off on Morocco's part, because for 2 reasons. I'm not a big fan of managers making significant tactical changes this late in a tournament, but obviously forced by some really weird decisions to let players start who clearly shouldn't have started the game, because all of them by halftime, the 3 defenders that we were worried wouldn't going to be able to start the game, 2 of them all 3 of them were in the starting 11 lineup. One of them didn't make it to the start of the game, and then the other 2 were out by halftime.
Yeah, that was almost willing them to see, will this work? Almost thinking this is our only chance.
Yeah, but what was weird is that the change that they had to make with Saiss early in the first half actually seemed to work in their favor, because it put them back in their more traditional formation.
Right.
And once they got into that, they seemed really, really comfortable attacking.
Yeah, I am actually intrigued in hearing how you guys feel about this, because I'm kind of disagreeing with myself a little bit, because on the one hand, I completely understand that your nation's in a semi-final is an incredible occasion. Not just your country, but like half the world seems to be behind you. If you can walk, you want to try to play that game, right? So Gerd and Saiss and the left back did their best. Mazraoui did the best they could. But is there not also a case that the team's physios are there for a reason? Like, they've got to do the test, and they got to, like, surely if you're not fit enough to do it, you don't put them in the lineup. And it's also a matter, it's not just a matter of them and protecting them, but it's also a matter of giving the subs getting them in the right headspace, you know?
I think, though, what happens is they ultimately, the physios included and the coach all go to the player and ask.
But of course the player's going to say yes.
Right, but I think there was part of them that thought, if we have any chance, we're going to have to do it with these guys. Let's just see.
But that's kind of my point is that it felt like Morocco's, granted, it came after the goal, but I felt like Morocco suddenly burst to life when they made the tactical change back to what was comfortable, and they were largely okay with the substituted players, and maybe that's what they should have started with to begin with.
Yes, but I don't know if the coach knew that would be how it would play out in terms of how well they would do without their guys in there, right?
Yeah.
Were you, like, after they scored the goal, France, did any part of you say, okay, now we're going to see Morocco, you know? No. The feeling, because for the next 5 minutes, it kind of was like that it was like, the second's going to fall any minute now, and then the 3-0 prediction that you guys had is going to come true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and full disclosure, I wrote in our WhatsApp group, this could get ugly immediately after the first goal, because I thought, you're going to have to attack.
But it felt like that. Yeah.
You're going to have to attack, and you have an Mbappe and Dembele running at you, so that's going to be bad. But I thought they handled it really well.
Yeah, and I would also comment, again, back to my original question is about making tactical changes this late in a tournament, in formation changes, Morocco looked like a completely different team until they went back to their original formation. They just didn't look as comfortable or whatever. But here's the thing about Morocco that I just love. They are such an entertainingly and creative tactical group of players. Like their ability to think in real time and make and skillful little passes, and they all play for each other. And I think the unusual nature in which they were attacking really frustrated the French for long stretches of this game. And if they could have just been as deadly in their finishing in the last 10 yards of the field or 20 yards of the field as they were getting the ball there.
Or even how they've been defending the whole tournament, if they would have been that good.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that goal, because it fell early. And, man, you always say this.
That to me is a byproduct of the unusual formation.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
well, possibly. Sure. I think there's an element of the occasion getting to them as well. But anyway, there's a... I'm not going to talk you completely through it because I'm cheating. I'm looking at it right now. But there was one of the three center-halves tried to intercept a pass to Griezmann. He burst out. He missed it, which ends up with Griezmann in the box with the ball. And at that point, if you notice on the far post, there's a bit of context needed here, because Achraf Hakimi, the right wing-back in this case, the right back normally, plays at Paris Saint-Germain with Kylian Mbappe. First of all, they're also really close friends personally. Like they're like not their best friends.
Bros, they're bros.
Yeah, I know, they're really close. And you could see in the tunnel before the game they were shaking hands. Yeah, so Hakimi, very, very conscious, even more conscious about Mbappe than a normal Moroccan defender would be. He's the wing back in this position. When Griezmann gets into the box, you can see he rushes into the center to pick up Mbappe to make sure whatever happens here now, Mbappe is not going to have a free run at goal. When he does that, he leaves the entire back post space open, right? Which is where you get Theo Hernandez, the attacking left back, who normally Deschamps doesn't trust, but he has to use him because his brother Luca Hernandez is injured. He's all alone in the box. He has half the box. I'm looking at it now.
He's waving,
50% of the box is available there for Theo Hernandez. And okay, I understand why Hakimi got drawn into the middle, because he's worried about Mbappe. And as a defender, the one thing you want to make sure in that situation is that Mbappe is not unmarked. That's fine. But someone else then needs to say, oh God, like we have one French guy who's got half the entire box available to him.
Was he the one that blocked the shot, though, that Mbappe attempt at goal?
No, that he hits Giroud in the end, I think. Or
he hits Giroud
in that area anyway. It might be one of the defenders.
Okay,
but in that whole sequence, it's just Theo Hernandez and no one. It's several seconds of no one just discovering, there's a Frenchman alone in half of our back box, and that's the kind of thing that throughout this tournament, Morocco have defended very intelligently, and it's the kind of thing you don't expect from them. So they've been very good at keeping cool heads and not getting drawn out of position and not panicking. And this to me seemed to be players freaking out a little bit about the occasion and worrying about Mbappe and all this sort of stuff, and not being aware enough of their surroundings.
Would you go back and repeat my favorite line of the podcast so far is Lars's comment of the French injury report as MVP of the tournament? Because does his more defensive-minded brother Lucas hit that ball ball the creative way that T.O. did to score the opening goal?
His more defensive-minded brother isn't there. He wouldn't make a
know.
run. He wouldn't make a run.
Point.
Yeah,
he wouldn't even be there.
Right.
Yeah, he wouldn't
Okay.
even be in the box.
Well,
coach,
the athleticism to hit the ball the way that he did, not just get to it, but then to hit it down was just it was great. It was
coach of the tournament. French injuries.
Yeah, right. Wait, because that forced many things, not just that one change.
Yes,
absolutely.
Right.
Oh, well, no, we've talked about that. Again, I think there's an argument, or at least a discussion to be had, if France is even anywhere near this point of the tournament, if they had the starting 11 we all thought they were going to start with, 8 weeks ago, right? I just find that to be a fascinating conversation.
You got to give the coach some credit
Sure.
for handling it well.
Well, I mean, here's the other thing. So today we find out Rabiot and the center back, what's his name?
Upamecano.
Oh, yeah, Upamecano. Were both out due to the flu.
Yeah.
Rabiot's not even in the 18. He's back at the hotel. Insert mom joke here. And so now, am I incorrect in saying that Deschamps is now on his third choice center midfielder?
I guess
And
you would
Fofana?
say that. Yeah. Fofana would. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
So think about that. That's how deep we talk about depth and rosters.
Because that's the initial worry about this team was that position than who they had lost originally before World Cup.
Right.
With Kante and Pogba being out. Yeah.
How many other nations could get to their third choice center midfielder and start them in a semifinal and win?
Yeah,
And
the answer is very few.
And I'm getting slightly ahead of myself here, but the second goal, Randall Kolo-Muani, is not in the squad even if there are no injuries. I mean,
that's right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He was brought in, I think, when Nkunku was injured. I got to double check that, but I think that's what happened. He wasn't actually in the initial squad.
As we talk about the final more, either this podcast or some of the ones that are coming up, or even after the final, we're going to talk about France and why they're here and how it relates to what they've done over the last 20 years in development and identifying players. And so this is a perfect example of why France, and to Peter's point, who Peter said, are they the new, all-time best team ever? Like, no, that's still Brazil with 5 titles, but our generation,
yeah, for sure.
There's no doubt.
And this is, I mean, I'm pretty sure we said this going into the tournament, that on paper, this is the best squad. What we weren't sure about was, how it would work as a team, because it's not always about having the best squad in the World Cup. You got to find an 11 that works. And that can actually be harder if you're too stacked with talent, because the dynamic becomes all fuzzy. But then I maintain that injuries have helped him out a little bit in that regard. It's forced Deschamps to play an 11 that works really well, that he would never have ended up with if everyone was fit. And, again, I just checked it now while you were talking. Randall Kolo-Muani was called up when Christopher Nkunku got injured at camp.
Wow.
So he wasn't in the squad. And here he comes in and settles this game to make it 2-0. And that is, like you talk about, the depth is it's incredible.
Yeah, it's beyond the 26 guys that go we're talking about here. Now we're talking about guys they're calling up to replace the guys that go. I mean, that is true depth.
Lars, I would argue that it was Mbappe that settled this game.
That little quick feet in the area was quite something. But the difference is, I mean, Hamdallah, who Morocco brought on, who I know a bit of because he played in Norway for a short spell in the start of his career. It's always funny to see people who've been... You guys must get this if people who've been in MLS when they were young turn up like in semifinals at the World Cup. You're like, really?
Yeah.
We get this with Norwegians. So it was like, I've seen him play for Ålesund in the Norwegian league. Like, this is weird. But yeah, he came on from Morocco. He had a great chance, couldn't get a shot off. I don't think he trusts his left leg very much. And right down the other end of the pitch shortly thereafter, a guy who wasn't even in the 27 for France scores the crucial goal. And that is kind of, it's a little bit simplistic. It's a little bit tabloidy, but that's the difference right there, right?
Okay. I feel like we're doing everybody a disservice because we've jumped all the way to the end of the game. And what we haven't talked about is the moment that happened for Morocco in the first half that at the moment seemed like an innocuous deal where Buffal ends up in the box. There's a collision, and the referee quickly and immediately and with all sorts of confidence gives Buffal a yellow card.
Yeah.
And then very quickly, we get a replay of the incident from behind the scene. And when I saw it, I went, am I crazy, or is that not a yellow card? I'm not sure. It's not a foul on Buffal in the box, and it should have been a PK, and VAR's not even looking at it.
Yeah.
Okay, there's some insight.
Do you want me to take that one?
Yeah. Sure, somebody.
Okay, so my instinct watching this was that, well, obviously giving a yellow to Buffal is completely wrong. I mean, there's no doubt. That's just ridiculous. I think if you look at where the referee is positioned, I guess it looks like from his perspective, he's straight behind Buffal. Maybe it looks like he's jumping in a little bit with his legs off the ground in a slightly dangerous way, but I mean, that's just not what happened. I mean,
who's the French player?
Is
it Hernandez?
It's Hernandez. Yeah, because he's coming inside with the ball from left back. But I think on the situation of the PK, I think, and this was kind of confirmed to me by my refereeing friend, it's kind of in VAR purgatory in the sense that if the referee had given a penalty to Morocco, it wouldn't have been overturned. But it's not wrong enough not to give it for VAR to get involved. So the situation is, it comes down to this whole threshold for involvement for VAR. Do we want VAR to re-referee the game, or do we want VAR to intervene when things are completely wrong?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Lars. Yeah, go ahead.
No. Yeah, because I was kind of done. It's one of those where Hernandez touches the ball and then there's a collision, but the way he takes out Buffal, I think that's a foul. Most other places on the field.
I feel like we've seen PKs and decisions by VAR in this tournament made on far less evidence than this. And to me, when I watch that replay, if you watch that replay without any context, it would not surprise me if you went, oh, Morocco got a penalty kick.
Yeah.
I mean, that seemed very clear to me that was a foul and should have been a PK, and VAR should have had him go back and look at it.
Right, because I think if he calls that a penalty, they'll review it.
Yes.
There's more. It's almost like there's more motivation to make sure a PK call, a penalty call, was gotten right than the other way around.
And that's the point of VAR, isn't it?
It is. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying maybe that's the psychology subconscious psychology.
But it comes down to what is the threshold for VAR to get involved in a subjective decision? Which this would be, like a collision like this.
Okay, it's the clear and obvious error test, right?
Yes. Yeah, but you make the referee go back. It's ultimately still going to be his subjective decision.
Yeah.
But we don't. The referees have been told that the bar has to be at a certain place because we don't want a ton of VAR checks all the time.
The VAR refs have been told that.
Yeah. So again, what my friend says is a former national team level referee who's in touch with some of the referees at this tournament. Said that basically this is a classic example of something that probably wouldn't have been overturned if it had been given as a penalty, but it wouldn't be considered wrong enough to trigger a review. So it's in VAR purgatory, kind of.
I just have this feeling that if he had told him to go look at it for himself, he would have went, oh, I really got that wrong, and he would have given the penalty.
Maybe, yeah. But the idea is that you shouldn't re-referee every situation. So that's where that is. I mean,
feel like
whether you agree with that or not.
No, I just feel like I'm in bizarro land because I'm historically the one that's always about referees' first gut opinions on calls and stuff. But to me, that was a clear and obvious error that he messed that up. And if he had been told, hey, you may want to go back and look at this because we think you missed something, as they have many times over the course of this tournament. And again, goals change games. That would have been 1-1, and it would have been a very different game at that point.
Not that often, though. We haven't had a lot of VAR in this tournament, really.
But
it's mainly been for handballs and stuff, like for subjective foul decisions in the box. I don't think we've had a lot.
We've had at least 2 or 3 PKs given for knocks in the box. Have we not for collisions in the box? And
I feel like I should have done homework on this, but there hasn't been many. I'm pretty adamant in that.
I tend to talk out of my ass a lot, Lars, if you haven't learned. So I
think the gut feeling I have just from how it's felt, I think I agree with Lars. We haven't had that many. And I only remember one case, the German referee, I forget the game now, but it made me mad, that he went and saw it and still decided not to call the penalty.
Okay, but see, as a generally pro referee guy, I appreciate that more than I like it when a referee says, "No, I saw what I saw and I made the decision I made," and even when I watch it on TV, I'm going to stick by that. I admire that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just thought it was a really weird deal.
On a personal level, my subjective opinion is I do agree with you. I think this is a situation where the referee should have been told, "Hey, let's just take 30 seconds to watch that again. Like, it's a long game, we have time. Let's just take 30. Yes, just have a look at that one."
I do have a production question as to who makes the decisions on how often they show the replays of those incidences, because I think that tends to sway the opinion of people. Like, if they just happen to show they showed it one time and they never showed it again.
That's the World Feed director, but you don't know if he's getting instructions.
At the end of the day, that's not super important, is it? Like, we're just audience. Like, it's the people playing the game who matters.
But they play the game for the audience.
I guess they probably make it if they knew that the VAR was looking at it and reconsidering it, maybe they would show it more often. But
Lars, they don't play the games for the pundits. They play the games for the audience. That is the purpose.
I agree with that.
Man, I just got to say, I loved watching Morocco just kind of go all balls out. The whole game, they tried, they put out 1,000% effort. They were creative and fun to watch, and they were playing on a razor's edge the whole game. And we talked about this. France may go up a goal and then, goof off, but then because Morocco's just got so many people pushed, eventually.
Let's talk about Morocco. Let's make it a
all right,
point.
yes, we've gone long. Somehow we've done that again. Unbelievable.
Excellent.
It's my fault. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk more about France's win over Morocco. This is part 2 of Qatar KickAround, our coverage of the second semifinal. France beats Morocco 2-0. So, yes, we do have the Argentina-France final. And I need to go back and look at our FOTMOB group and find out. I don't even know I haven't looked in a while, Lars. Have you looked to see if anybody in particular got really close to this? I know I saw that our friend Buzz, had predicted a France-Argentina final.
Well, then he did.
Well, but I mean, I don't think the rest of his bracket was tight. I'm wondering.
Hey, just to get in the 2 finalists, you're doing something right.
Yeah, I'll look at it. It's over here. I can look at it here.
We can't hear you.
No, it's over here. I can look at it over here. But anyway, my point being in all of this is, I think we all would have liked to have seen Morocco in the final for all of the historic and vibe.
Because yesterday we were a little bit, France-Argentina would be historic and the storylines and all that. Morocco getting to the final would be historic too, but it'd be great to see Mbappe versus Messi and all that. But, man, it was hard to root against Morocco today, especially after what they showed going down 1-0. It was like, man, these guys, it's like...
Yeah, and then they kept producing good chances. Though, in fairness, France had some the other way as well.
Sure.
It was just a really good game.
It was.
I've checked this now very briefly. It's Jason Beckmeyer who's in the lead with 40 points. He had a France-Brazil final, but he had a lot of other things correct.
I'm looking at it, yes. All right, congratulations.
You know what, Peter?
What?
You and I have the same number of points.
Do we? Or is it very low down the list? Oh,
Well,
yeah, here we are. Yeah, we're down there at
we're
25th place.
Yeah.
Did I do that? Am I in there?
I thought you were. Yeah, you're probably in here somewhere. I'm looking at the list now. I don't see you in here.
It's a blow to me that I have the same number of points as someone who had Denmark in the final.
Just some dumb American.
I was very close to Lars, so I might be right around there too.
In the tournament predictor? Did you end up picking a winner too? So we still have to get the winner still be determined.
I had Argentina as my winner.
I think we all three did.
All right, so there's Jason is in the lead with 40 points, Michael Perez at 39, and Jack, somebody with a funny name, is also on 39 points. And then there's several people at 37, 36. So I'm sure there's still some stuff to be determined based on finishing. So there you go. Okay, yeah, Morocco was a lot of fun. Sorry.
Yeah, no, yes, Morocco, and some news came out today. Well, their fan base has been probably one of the storylines as well of this tournament, not just the team, but how well supported they've been, how well they've traveled. Another Arab country, North African Arab, the Middle East, and that area is also behind the team just because of what it represents. So this was historic, but the fan base really added a lot of color to the tournament. And I think I don't know if it's fair to say this or not, but at least through the television screen, we haven't seen some of the same atmospheres at certain matches that we are used to seeing in other tournaments. But the games involving Morocco for sure had that. Argentina, another one that's flown a lot of people. But in talking to people that have been there, it seems that unlike Morocco, a lot of other fan bases decided not to really go en masse, understandably so because of all the issues. Thank goodness Morocco was there and went on this run to give us a little bit of that was otherwise would have been missing, right?
Yeah, I saw several tweets from the stadium today commenting about how it was like 95% Morocco fans and not even 5% French. It was very
crazy.
Really low numbers. So, and that is unusual, but especially at this point of the tournament.
Yeah, of course, and for all many reasons we spoke about. I mean, a lot of fans of the game that typically would travel to the World Cup haven't gone, right? Yeah. And in fact, today too, though, we got some news that the Qatari government suspended some flights from Morocco. Like they didn't allow Air Morocco to fly. They had like 40 flights scheduled.
Yeah. And some of them ended up getting canceled on the Qatari side of it.
And the reason for that is?
I don't think they gave a reason.
I don't think we know definitively.
Were these people who had tickets to the game, or just people who wanted to come hang out in Doha?
Some apparently were, yeah. Though we could speculate that it's possible. I feel comfortable speculating that it's possible they were concerned on the Qatari side with an influx of a couple of hundred, if not a couple of thousand fans who may not have tickets, and potential security risks outside the stadium that can occur. I mean, this is something we know very well in England, because you'll remember the final of the Euros were held here in England, in London, at Wembley, and we had a huge problem with fans without tickets trying to force their way into the stadium. I mean, to this day, we still don't have a clear idea of how many were actually in there, certainly over capacity by quite some, and you had people getting injured and stuff from people trying to barge down security checkpoints and stuff. So that would be a legitimate concern on the side of the Qataris, if that is in fact what's happened. I can't confirm that one way or the other, but I think it throws up, and seeing reports today from the game from people who were there, that there were banks of empty seats, not the ones that were shown on TV, but there were banks of empty seats. Logistically, it is difficult because you don't know who's going to be in the semifinal until a couple of days ahead. And this is true with Qatar, and it'll be true with most World Cups. They're usually not held somewhere where you can just hop on a short haul flight and get there. Logistically, getting to a World Cup because your team has done really well is tricky. Then there's the issue of accommodation, which is harder at this World Cup than what is normal. It's all a little bit complicated, but I just wish there was a more streamlined process.
Yeah,
behind
but
it all.
we had a case here, Lars, where for one fan base, it was easy to get there. They were willing to do it. They were going to go. But I'm talking about the Moroccan fan base, and they were still prevented from doing it. So
Casablanca to Doha is still a bit of a stretch. I
but
mean, it's not,
despite right. But they were doing it. My point is, above and beyond the difficulty, they were doing it, and it still wasn't able to happen. And so, which is unlike other World Cups where it might be also difficult, but it's allowed to happen. The other thing we didn't see are the fan groups sitting together in mass, right?
Yeah.
There was very little of that, and they were scattered and mixed throughout. And so I just wonder if the ticketing logistics might have been a little bit different for this World Cup than they have been for all the other ones. It just makes you wonder. And the empty seats, were those going to locals that didn't get used, or what was, because we've been told all the tickets have been sold, right?
Yeah.
So you wonder who didn't use those tickets and why.
Yeah,
it's a shame.
And the difference would be compared to if it's being held in a bigger country, let's put it that way, say the US, which is where it's going to be held next time. Wherever the final is, there's going to be a large expatriate community of people from the countries in the final. Maybe not in that city, but in the surround. I mean, wherever you host the World Cup final in the US, you're going to find 30,000 people from any given country in the world who want to go to it, right? That's going to be, that's not going to be a problem.
Brazil was like that, Germany, South Korea.
But having it in Doha does present you with some unique challenges, because it is a very small.
There's not a ton of people there in the first place.
No.
It's pretty small
accommodations
nation.
Too.
Okay, so now that we're through the game, well, before we get to the France part, just the Morocco part of this, which is we've talked a lot about the fact that Morocco didn't get to this point as some sort of weird upstart deal, right? Like they're a legitimately good national team. What's sad is Morocco as a footballing nation will, to some degree, will go back into obscurity because a lot of us won't find them playing on a regular basis.
They're players,
right?
A little
the players,
bit,
yes,
but
you know
the
what I'm saying?
team, yeah.
You know, I think that we'll see all the other Europeans and South American teams playing again. This stat came up that I thought was fascinating. Since 1970, there have been 28 teams that have participated in a World Cup final. Only 2 of them are not. Spain and Croatia are the only 2 that aren't the normal group of teams that are in the final, which is Germany, Argentina, France, Brazil, Italy, and Netherlands.
Yeah, and Spain is like an outlier. Like they should be one of those, but they just farted up too many World Cups in years past.
Right.
Before they finally won one with their.
And I can't figure out if that's a bug in the system or if that's a.
No, it's depth.
Okay. Yeah, but you know what I mean? Does that render the World Cup does that make the World Cup ultimately harder? It makes it the hardest tournament to win in the world, but the fact that we can't get a good Moroccan team to survive long enough to make it to the final, is that a flaw in the system?
No, it's not meant to be easy. It's meant to be hard. It's you're meant to determine who's who the champions of the world are.
Let's have it every 2 years and expand to 64 teams.
All right, John.
He wants the March Madness.
All right, Johnny.
Yeah, no. And at some point before we're done with this World Cup and these pods, we do have to talk about the format issues for the next one and all the different possibilities. So,
but there are a lot of downsides to that, the new formats. But there's one thing that I guess is a positive, which means there's so many more slots for various confederations that are not Europe.
Yeah, but the thing is, Morocco, though, is a legit team, right? And so they're not one of those that would have benefited by the expansion.
My point would be, I would argue that they are, because the way qualification out of Africa works now, it's brutal, because even if you win your qualifying group, you still have to play a playoff. So you get countries who
deserve to be there that are eliminated,
that just aren't, because you have one bad day at the office and it messes you up. Even if it's a 2-legged playoff, it's still
it's too short, right?
Yeah,
so I understand.
It's not as if you can be flawless. You can win every game of the group and not concede a single goal and still not make the World Cup, because you have to get through a playoff, and that is always. Look, there's always going to be an issue. There are a lot of countries in the world. Like, how many do you send to the World Cup? But I've always looked at the qualifying process for Africa and thought, good lord, like that is tough. So I'm glad with the new format, presumably that'll be changed.
Well, thanks, Morocco. You entertained us. I just wish you.
It was fun while it lasted.
It was fun while it lasted. So France go in as the defending champs into the final. This hasn't happened a lot in recent years. I think only twice since Brazil was the defending champ, 58-62, that the defending champ is qualified for the final.
Right, correct.
Right.
Yes.
So this is kind of a rarity unto itself.
Yeah, 98, 02. The champs, 94, 98.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, any particular just overall thoughts about the French and how they've done so far? Either one of you?
Well,
Andy?
first, before we talk specifically about them, the two finalists now, are we comfortable in saying that it's at least out of, a very few select group of teams in this World Cup, they're two deserving ones, right? And you could even argue body of work. Like, who would you say deserves to be there more than these two when you consider the body of work?
I mean, it'd be Morocco, really. I mean,
Morocco, right?
That's kind of the only thing, yeah.
Right, exactly. So
for just because the run they had to the semis was so tough.
No, yeah, for sure. But we saw the depth played out, right?
Yeah,
and
for sure.
so ultimately, Yeah.
No, you can't say that. Yeah, they were undeserving for the France. And if we were looking at it ahead of the tournament, Brazil and Argentina were favorites with the bookmakers, and the French had, in my opinion, the strongest team on paper, or the strongest squad on paper, even with the injuries. So having France and Argentina in the final, not a surprise.
And France, with the bookmakers, probably would have been higher had it not been for the two key injuries, right?
Yeah, for sure.
They would have been higher odds. So.
Did you guys see your sweet prince and the Moroccan manager hug after the game?
Yeah, that was. I mean, I'm sad,
Former
obviously,
teammates,
because I think it was just the two chances he had in the first half. That was the moment for me and my outsider.
You're still only one goal behind, right?
Well, yeah, a brace in the final, but I don't see it, man. I don't see it. That was the moment for my sweet prince.
You've already given up on him with a game to go.
You still got your other wager, Lars.
I do have an Argentina to win and Mbappe to be top scorer wager. That's looking pretty spicy. So we'll see. We'll see.
Okay, before we move on to the final segment, any last France-Morocco thoughts?
Just that it was, you know what? Like, it was another game, first of all, in which France did not look indomitable. Like, they look like a team that can be beaten. They don't look like a team that's like they're just going to march. And there are vulnerabilities there, but you have to be brave. You have to attack them because they're not happy with that. Having said that, I would like to read out a tweet from a friend and acquaintance of mine named Philippe Auclair, who writes... He's French, though. He writes, "It's strange how much more emotionally involved in this French team I am than I was 4 years ago. It's probably because it's riddled with imperfections, but still sticks together somehow." And Griezmann, of course, he's a big Griezmann enthusiast. And it was another...
Wait a second. The 18 France team also was imperfect.
But there was something about how they were...
More destined.
They were strangely unlovable because... They were just pretty solid at the back, and then they had Griezmann who ran away from everyone at front, and that was kind of it. Now, they did play out a pretty goofy game against Argentina that I'm sure we'll touch on when we get to the final preview time. But there was something more solid about them, whereas this team is not solid at all. Like, it's really vulnerable, but they have so much talent the other way.
And so in Argentina too. I don't want to get ahead to that, but they're also imperfect, which makes it very intriguing. And
completely agree. Yeah. And I want to, since we're about to leave this game now, I want to flag up Griezmann again. Another huge performance by him, and I think honestly, I know
the first goal.
It's a bit of a hipster thing to say, but I think he is the key to this team. The way he's taken on this sort of strange everything everywhere all at once type position where he just does everything. There was one point in the second half where one of the center halves had been pulled out of position and he dropped in and stood in as a center half for a few seconds in an attack. Griezmann, he's just kind of running around.
He may be low-key player of the tournament.
I think he is, because he's been given this job. It's like, again, we have this team that tactically has some big flaws. Again, the two wingers who don't defend, a left back that's way too attack minded, and then just two central midfielders to look after everything. Like, there's so many, like Deschamps being quite a defensive coach, I'm sure has nightmares about this lineup, right? And he's basically told Griezmann, Antoine, you gotta help me, man. Like, it's his job to run around and fill in the gaps and just make it work, and he's doing an amazing amazing job. And again, you watch his touch maps, like the sort of maps you get where he's been and where he's everywhere. Like he's taking up all these positions, and he has to make that work.
I just at some point I have a feeling I'm going to go back and rewatch this game, because there was something about the way Morocco was going about their business that was so weird and wheels off. The one-touch play, where their players were finding themselves and how they were able to at least create opportunities against the French, that I have this weird suspicion have the elements of some sort of new strategy that people may try to implement into their
like the Morocco way.
Yeah, like overloading sides or whatever it is. There was just something I wasn't
goofy first touches that actually work.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It was just it was really unique.
And one more thing I do want to say before we go about Morocco. As a soccer nation, we've talked about how they've put in to be World Cup hosts. They're a great soccer nation. They were the first team from Africa to go through the qualifying process and qualify. In 1970, they were the first team to get a point in the World Cup. They were the first team to get to the round of 16 from Africa. And they're the first team to get to the semifinals from Africa. This is a pretty legit soccer country, football nation, that probably doesn't get the...
Way more so than Qatar.
Yes, way more so than many countries, way more so than some countries in South America and Europe. I don't want to make people from certain countries mad, but they have much more legitimacy as a soccer nation. They happen to play on the African continent, and so like Lars said, it's hard for them to make it to a World Cup, right? Sometimes when they deserve to be, they can't be there. And two, there's that stigma that you're not from Europe or South America, so you're not going to be as good. And I think maybe this was a little bit of a wake-up call, because there's them, for sure, and a few others that are like that okay, we have to start not considering them to be underdogs when they're playing, a level 2 European team or a level 2 South American team, for example.
Very good. All right, we will take a break. When we come back, we will get into sneaky peeks of Saturday and Sunday's games and Professor Andy's trivia answer. Here's part 3 of Qatar KickAround, our coverage of today's semifinal between France and Morocco. France has won the game 2-0 and moves on to play Argentina in Sunday's final, which will take place at 9 a.m. Central, 10 Eastern. What is that, 6 p? What is that time in London?
3 p.
3 p in London? It's an afternoon game, a Sunday lunch or late lunch, early dinner time, whatever. I don't know. That's on Sunday. But before we start talking about the games over the weekend, let's do Soccer90.com, a good place to go buy sexy soccer lingerie. Professor Andy's World Cup trivia.
So the two finalists this year.
Oh no, what happened to Andy?
It's getting to be a long time in this World Cup. Both finalists this year lost to teams in the group round that they weren't expected to lose to. Of course, we remember Argentina against Saudi Arabia, one of the biggest upsets in World Cup history. And then France also became the third defending champion to lose to an African team when they lost to Tunisia 1-0 in a game where they played their B team, fairness. But The other two times that an African nation beat a defending champion, they were considered massive upsets. Those were Cameroon and Senegal. Tell me the two teams they beat and the World Cups.
I'm excited because I think I have this.
I think I do too.
Damn it.
You each want to do one?
No,
you can go. Okay.
Lars, you need to go first because you're the one that's concerned about this.
And I have more or less.
I want you to look good and smart.
I have disgraced myself frequently in the trivia segment.
You're the noted football journalist, Lars. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I haven't often looked like it. And that's just the visuals. Never mind the trivia. I think Cameroon. I think that's 1990. Which was the big tournament of Cameroon. I think they beat Argentina in the group stage. I don't remember the game, but I do remember 1990 being the year of Cameroon. Of course, Argentina won in 86. Has to be that one. Mm-hmm. And the second one is unforgettable. It was Senegal beating France in 2002.
Correct. Both massive upsets. Argentina and France, because in the World Cup, all the dots get connected in one way or another.
The El Hadji Diouf, Papa Bouba Diop Senegal team. What a Salif Diao in midfield, I think.
All right, I'm going to admit I would have gotten both of them wrong.
Yes. Whoa.
I thought it was one of them beat Italy, and I thought the one of them had beaten Spain.
No, so Italy tied New Zealand in their goof up after their World Cup championship.
That's
right?
what it was, yes.
And Spain didn't get out of the group, but they didn't
they lose to an African team?
No, they lost to Chile, they lost to the Netherlands, and Australia, I believe, was also in that group.
Did you see how he just pulled that off the top of his head, Lars?
It's incredible.
It's an amazing, it's like the coolest bar trick ever. It's not a curse, it's your superpower.
Can I have a fact? You know, the coach, Edouard Cissé, the coach of Senegal today in this tournament, captain of the team that beat France in 2002. What a guy.
That's like the Deschamps trivia.
Exactly right.
Yes.
Exactly right.
Yes. Great trivia. Oh, Lars,
nerds,
awesome.
Nerds.
Get in there.
All
Nerds
right.
together, strong.
That's right.
So, does the fact that we now have a Croatia-Morocco third place game on Saturday interest either of you?
No. Well,
you're like that meme of that woman that's like, no, gross. And it's like, wait, hold on.
It might be a good game of football. Let's keep an open mind. I just think it's a nonsense because there's two teams who are both A, tired, and B, emotionally devastated and just want to be out of there. It just doesn't matter.
So, Andy, what is the history behind the third place game? Why do they play it? Why do they insist on playing it when all of us as fans mock it and go, who cares?
The real reason is
TV
money, right? I mean,
has there always been a third
follows
place
the
game?
Olympic tradition of having a silver medal or a bronze medal. It hasn't always been played. There's been a third place designation, but for the most part, I would say in about 18 of the 22 World Cups, we played a third place game. There have been times when the second round has been in group stages, and so like in 1950, I don't want to get into weeds.
But my question, but if you said it's I mean, I know that's why it's played today, but TV probably wasn't the driving reason when it was originated.
No. Originally, it's just you're following Olympic tradition. I mean, the World Cup came after Olympics, and so a lot of what we do in sports is modeled after the Olympic model, right? And so that's why. But then when TV became a thing, then you don't have to play your look for a country like Morocco. This is a big deal. Like finishing third instead of fourth doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is a big deal.
I think it's a big deal for Croatia too, because wouldn't this be like their wouldn't finishing, because didn't they finish third
in 98?
Okay, so two third places and a second place
I don't think they care at all.
Yeah,
really?
I could be wrong, but I think the devastation of not getting to the final when you're that close is still so heavy that I don't think it, because it doesn't matter, I think, is the problem.
Yeah, you tend to say you've gotten to 3 semifinals more than you say top 3 finishes. There is a country that is a big soccer nation that every time they get to that game, they win it, and that's Germany. They don't... we will still win the game because we are playing the game, right? I
How
mean,
many
that's what-
times has Germany won the third place game?
I think like 3 or 4, something like
More
that.
than they've won the World Cup?
No, they
Oh.
won the World Cup 4 times.
2018 was England Belgium, wasn't it? I have no memory of what happened.
Yeah,
there.
Belgium beat England 2-0. England has never won the third place game. They lost it twice, once to Italy, and then against Belgium last year. Brazil typically doesn't do that great in that game, although they won it in 78.
I'm assuming there's a significant money prize difference between third and fourth.
I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know that. But it's a chance to play some guys that didn't get a chance to play in the tournament as well.
So that's kind of
but Modric might get his final World Cup moment.
Because I've never thought about, I've never paid attention to this. Do teams historically go into the third place game and start the guys that haven't
Not
played, or do
always.
they tend to start their stronger team?
Mixed bag.
Okay.
Mixed bag. There's typically lots of goals scored. You'll see a 3-1, 3-2, 3-0, that kind of thing.
Because no one cares.
Yeah, it's a little bit more like, nobody wants to get
Lars
injured.
is the third place stick in the mud.
Yeah. I think Morocco will care.
Well, Lars, we're going to have to talk about it.
Yeah,
we have a
that's-
pod on Saturday where
Yeah.
we're going to have to talk about it. So, unfortunately, you're going to have to watch it.
No, but I think Andy, it's very possible. It's very probable that Andy's right. I think to Morocco, another chance to have a good moment at this World Cup, which that team deserves. Yeah, it might be that for them it does matter more than it often matters to others.
All right. So then my big question for you is, if I had told you 5 weeks ago that the final would culminate with France and Argentina, what would your reaction been?
This is pre the injury news or just in general?
Well, we knew about Pogba, we knew about Conte, we didn't know about Benzema, right? So
Yeah.
let's just say at the beginning of the tournament, if I had told you this is going to culminate with France and Argentina in the
Yeah.
final, what would your reaction be?
Unlikely, but not surprised at all.
Would you have thought, oh, that will be a good final?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
for
All right,
sure.
Lars?
No, same. I mean, it tends to be the way with France. They're either really good or a disaster because there's always so much talent there that if they can just put it together to be an 11 that works, then they can win any tournament, right? So that it wouldn't have surprised me. Morocco and Croatia making the semis, I would have called for the men in white coats to take you away. so I mean, we've had some upsets here for sure.
Well, they were in the
That's
group of death, Lars. Come on. Anybody that comes out of the group of death.
So I got here's my question to both of you. It will the if just take out the prize, the ending prize. Is there a chance that the Croatian-Morocco game is actually a better game of football than the France-Argentina game?
Yeah, probably.
You think?
Yeah. I think because they'll want to just play football in that third place game.
I think that's. I would agree.
The
with that.
guys that are playing are still going to want to play. They're still going to want to show their skills with a Z. You know.
But of course, with the other one, it's history. It's history. It's Messi
Yeah,
versus
but
Mbappe.
It's the pressure of the moment.
Yeah. But I think in terms of just a game of football, yeah, no. I mean, I think if we're finding a way to talk up that game and try to make it sound exciting, then yeah, this could be a fun watch. Is a good angle to go down. Yeah, I would agree with that.
But I think what you're asking, Peter, is
Right.
are we in for a Borefest Argentina?
Well, that's kind of
France?
what
I don't suspect. But you know why? Because there's been some finals that lacked star power. There's always stars, but I mean, this has two very legit stars and a very star-studded singular storyline, which is Messi handing it over to Mbappe, right? This generation's greatest passing it to the next generation's great. That's a pretty defined, strong, star centric storyline that not every World Cup final has, honestly.
I completely agree, and I would also just add that I don't think this thing of just kind of sitting back and shutting the game down and hoping they get a win from somewhere, I just don't think that's an option that's available to Paris. And Paris, sorry, France. That was a sort of PSG
Yes.
slip of the tongue. I just think, again,
The
France,
Qataris love you for that. By the way.
yeah. If France try to sit back and turn this into a Borefest, they lose. I think.
Yeah.
And I think they know that. So I don't think it's going to be that kind of game. I think again, if you're playing a team that has two wide players who doesn't defend much and a left back who's not very good defensively, and a striker in addition to all of this, you can't really shut a game down. You have to attack, and I think that's why this French team has been more fun to watch than even the 2018. I would 2018 our team.
All
I
right.
would argue.
Well, don't use up all your preview juice, Lars and Andy, because we've got a whole pod on Saturday where we will preview the World Cup final between Argentina and France, and we will recap and discuss the third place game. Before we go today, I'm assuming everybody listening to this has heard the news that his wife, Grant Wall's wife, posted on social media today that Grant's body had returned to the United States on the 12th, which was 2 days ago, had undergone an autopsy from the New York medical examiner, and it had been decided that he had passed away from a rupture of an aortic aneurysm, which I'm just going to tell you, if you have an aneurysm in your aorta and it ruptures, you are not surviving that. And the interesting part about this conclusion is it answers all of the questions that we had leading up to how he died, which is some of the symptoms and his complaints about his health situation, how he felt leading up to that day. It also even answers why the clinic visit didn't come back with anything, because you don't see aortic aneurysms easily, and the fact that he just 3 days later died out of the blue. Because once it ruptures, it's over.
It's something that builds through time, but then the stress of what he was going through probably accelerated.
Yeah, aortic ruptures are commonly seen in high-impact car accidents because if you're not wearing a seat belt, you hit the steering wheel and it tears your aorta. And because that's like the most important thing going on in your heart, feeding your heart, it's a big deal. So it's interesting to hear that. No nefarious stuff going on. It's a terrible, but again, it in many ways adds more to the whole thing about dying and doing something you love, right?
Yeah.
Because that guy fate had him dying at that point. He just happened to be doing exactly the thing he probably would have rather been doing than
Not
anything
only
else
that,
in the world.
Covering Argentina.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a history there with him having lived there, and that was kind of his secondary national team. So, anyway.
Yes. All right, Lars, enjoy your few days off and away from us. I hope you can bear it with all your might and will, sir.
I'm increasingly thinking I should watch France-Argentina from World Cup 2018 to prep for our pre-final thing.
There's a good homework assignment, sir.
See if there's a recording of that available somewhere. I
think
remember that being a very goofy game of football.
I think there's at least a goal or maybe two in that game for you to enjoy, or five.
Jorge Sampaoli thought playing this crazy high line with a team that doesn't press and has slow defenders was a good idea.
Was Argentina ever ahead in that game? Man, I don't remember.
You'll have to go.
It was chaos. And we maybe since we have some time before the weekend, maybe it's to watch it.
You do. Thanks, Lars, man. Have a great night.
Anytime, guys. Bye.
Andy, thank you, sir. Yep. Thanks to those of you watching the live stream, listening to the pod. We love and adore you. Get stuck in. When you're 50s, we'll talk to you on Saturday.